Welcome to Cardboard Conjecture. We're a podcast about board games where we have opinions and conclusions formed on the basis of incomplete information. This episode of Cardboard Conjecture is brought to you by these great Saskatoon businesses: Amazing Stories Comics on 8th Street, Dragon's Den Games on 8th Street, MrDiceGuy.com, and Breakout Escape Rooms on Faithful Avenue. Welcome to Cardboard Conjecture. I'm your host, Norm.
I'm Ryan.
I'm Ian.
And on today's episode, I'm going to talk about Horrified. Ian, what are you going to talk about?
I'm going to talk about Viva Java.
Coffee. Ryan?
I'm going to be reviewing Teotihuacan, the pyramid game, City of Gods, Teotihuacan.
You could have just picked Root. That would have been easier.
Cardboard Conjecture is proudly sponsored by Amazing Stories Comics on 8th Street in Saskatoon. They are the winner of the Joe Shuster Award for Best Comic Book Store in Canada, and they were also nominated in 2016 for the U.S. Eisner Spirit of Comics Retailer Award presented at Comic-Con. Amazing Stories' amazing collection of comic books, board games, puzzles, and collectibles can be found in their store or on their new online website. And we are back. Thank you very much. Before we get into things that we've been playing, doing, and thinking, Ryan, give us an update on the contest from our two new sponsors.
All right. So we introduced it last episode where we were running the contest. Where should I read out the URL?
No. No.
Man,
did I get a lot of flack for that one?
Oh, people were just like harassing me left, right, and center. Can you please tell me the website that we go to again?
Yeah.
So on the Guild number 3039 and on Facebook and on Twitter, I posted that we were running a contest where they have to go to this link and solve a series of 3 puzzles. And right now it's been a absolute success. I would say, as of this recording right now on June 15th, we are over 200 unique logins to the website.
Nice.
That's a lot.
But on that note, only 22 people have successfully solved all 3 puzzles.
Wow.
Which is I know. So it's like, and some of them were like, as soon as the episode dropped, I had somebody already answer all 3 puzzles within like a half an hour. So they almost beat my record. But it's been really, really wonderful. The people that have solved them have been very appreciative. They said this is one of the most unique contests that they've ever entered.
Cool.
And they thought the puzzles were very clever and they were fun. And yeah, so you have until, I believe I'm closing it out on June 28th. Because we record again on June 29th. So I'm closing it on midnight of the 28th. So
and the contest is to also introduce to our listeners our two new sponsors.
Right. Breakout Escapes and Board Game Lounge and Mr. Dice Guy, both located here in Saskatoon. And for a lot of people that I've been responding to, a lot of people think that I created the puzzles. No, it was Roberta.
Yeah.
And, Breakout Escape designed the 3 puzzles. Which
is a pretty good compliment to what they do. I think that's the best hat tip to Breakout. So awesome.
Yeah, so it's been a lot of fun. It's been a lot of fun. A lot of people have been they've been messaging me too and trying to get hints and clues. And I've been very generous in my hints and clue giving.
Just like a kindergarten teacher.
So if you're stuck of Dyson Men, all 3 of them are stuck. If you're stuck, drop me a message and I'll graciously bump you towards the answers.
Cool. Well, we'll take that as a jumping point. We always like to start the episode with kind of games of late, but I think let's broaden that scope out to like, what have you been playing, doing, and thinking? I mean, because fussing with your collection, I want to hear stuff about that too. So Brian, start us off, man. What have you been playing, doing, and thinking?
So one thing that I've been doing is that I was accepted into the Roll for the Galaxy beta test for the iPad release, the iOS release.
Nice.
And so I've been testing that out, and this is a very smooth implementation of Roll for the Galaxy. So my experience with if you don't know what Roll for the Galaxy is, it's kind of like it's the spin-off from Race for the Galaxy, the
Puerto Rico with space dice.
And so Race for the Galaxy had a very successful implementation of their iOS app. And then the same design team is coming back and doing the Roll for the Galaxy. And this runs very, very smooth. Like the actual user interface is very intuitive and very nice. So what I've been doing is I've been more so testing out the interactions of the certain tiles. So like there's a lot of tiles that have lots of different functionalities. And so I'm just kind of going through and I'm just kind of testing out, hey, do these 6-point tiles, do they actually generate the right amount of points? Or if I have this tile in my tableau, is it actually allowing me to do things it's saying that I'm allowed to do?
So you're just checking the bugs and stuff too, right? Is that
right? Yeah. And as of right now, I haven't come across very many.
Ooh, nice and clean.
So it's going to be ready to go pretty darn soon.
All right,
I would say so. So be looking for Roll for the Galaxy on iOS, and I believe there's going to be Android support for it as well. I'm not sure about Steam, but I know iOS and Android. For sure. Just to bump up the already massive collection of iPad games that I already have.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah. So look for Roll for the Galaxy, iOS, Android, Steam.
Well, I stumbled upon, and I think I remember seeing this on Kickstarter, and it was one of those, should I pledge, shouldn't I pledge? And I thought, well, it's not a big game. It's a small card game. It's called The Villagers, and it's a card drafting and tableau building game for 1 to 5 players. And what it is theme-wise it's the Middle Ages after the plague hit, right? So Western Europe is pretty much devastated, and everybody has to start from scratch, kind of thing. And who you are is you're a farmer. Everybody has one farmer that you start off with and some money, and a hand of cards that represent 5 different domains. And the domains are, before I get into that thematic, let's talk about the mechanism, because they overlap so nicely. It's kind of a tech tree thing, right? So you got a card drafting game, and you got a tableau in front of you that is basically a tech tree, and you can decide what way you go, because there's so many different kind of branching choices depending on your cards in your hand, depending on they come out in the tableau, depending on how they're drafted amongst the players that you're playing. But now that you understand how you're building this tableau in front of you, how it works is you have agriculture, you have forestry. I think there's like a lumberjack, you have mining, and there's a few other kind of and the hayer. So there's 4 main basic ones. And then there's special individuals that will come in doing specific tasks, but it's basically that interconnectivity of those tech trees that you start. You might be big into mining and start discovering that there's certain 2 deep or 3 deep or 4 deep card combination chains that will score you points as you build this village during the Middle Ages after the plague, and at the end of the game you have, it's like any other beautiful Euro. You're going for victory points. You're going for end of game combos. You're going for this synergistic connection between your resources and the tech path that you choose while you're doing this card drafting game. I'm a big fan so far. So yeah, the village. Anything on the way out with the villagers, you guys? Is this something that right away your brain's going, I think I might have to try this?
I thought I've heard of Sinister Fish games before, but I'm trying to look up what they've done before.
So as you're doing that, Ian, I know
So I have played one game in the last 2 weeks since we met before. It's weird because I kind of just stopped doing the online gaming, and I don't know if it's just because I'm sick of not really gaming, or the fact that I'm working at home now and I'm always in front of the computer and I don't want to be outside of that. But
that's a thing, because I don't know, I seem to be spending all my time in front of the computer, like you say, but then I have like no problem with sitting in front of my computer at night playing games. Yeah. Like my optometrist is going to make $1 billion off me in the after this.
Yeah, but we did get a game of a 2-player game of Castles of Mad King Ludwig yesterday, which is a game I just really like. And one thing that kind of bugs me is when people talk about, and I know that I'm probably all alone in this, but it bugs me when people talk about games that fired other games. And for reasons I can get into it another time, I'm not going to get into that right now, but I'm kind of more of the opinion of, if I have this game, why do I need this new game that does the same thing? And Mad King Ludwig is kind of like that with Suburbia, right? Because those are two very similar types of games. You've got you're building your little city or castle, and the tiles are up for auction and so on. But I think that they're just different enough that you can justify having both. Right? There's things that Suburbia does that Mad King doesn't, and there's things that Mad King does and Suburbia doesn't. And I think the big difference with the castles is that they're not just hexes, right? All the different shapes you got to fit. There's a whole different spatial element. And then, of course, there's a master builder where somebody actually sets the prices for everything that's coming up. And that's just a really cool dynamic to it as well. And then you got these cool little things like, I guess I was building the queen's castle because her bedroom was there, but she had to go through the meat locker to get to her bedroom. And you just get cool little things like that with Mad King. I really like that game. It's been a while since I've played it, but
it's been a while since I've played that one. But I remember you hit it on the head. I like the fact of the master builder setting the prices, because that's going to generate your income for the next, especially in a higher player count game, that's going to set your income for the next few turns.
Right.
To buy some tiles. And if no one buys the tiles, then you have no money to spend.
Yeah, you really got to plan that out.
And if nobody buys the tiles, do you get to use the tiles, or are they just off the market?
No, they're still in that little tableau for people just to rearrange and set prices for when they become master builder. They're still all there. Oh, have you not played Mad King?
I've not played. I mean, I love Suburbia, and I've often been, drawn to give this a go, but it's never happened. But yeah, the tile, setting the price for the tile thing reminds me of was it Isle of Skye?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Where you put your tiles out and you put some money out in front of it. And in the same regards, that's what generates the revenue that you need to get you through. So I find that mechanism intriguing. Yeah.
It's a good game for sure.
But but definitely there are the similarities that you mentioned, Ian, too.
But Suburbia has kind of like a whole different economic background to it, right? Like trying to keep your population up and your income. And so there's a whole different level to Suburbia. So like I said, I think they're just different enough that it's okay. But
have you ever played with the expansion? for Mad King?
Yes. I didn't find anything too essential.
I like the moats. Like you be able to put the moat around your castle.
Oh.
And you can't go outside the.
Yeah, I don't like being restricted like that.
It was just one thing that I liked about it. I don't know about the set collecting of the swans.
Yeah, I just like having the different tiles, more tiles.
Cool. Well, Ryan, have you got a little card game you want to?
Yeah, so there it's been a while that I've owned this game, and just recently realized that Jen says she's never played it before, and I was like, well, why do I have this game? It's a 2-player only card game called Fox in the Forest, and it's a 2-player trick taking game, which is unique. When people first came out, like, how is this ever going to work? A 2-player trick taking game. So I introduced it to Jen just the other week, and we've been playing it a lot. Actually, she really, really dig it. Like, we've always, like, being from Saskatchewan, like, you always sit around and play. Oh, I don't even know how many different types of trick taking games I know. But
wait, sorry. I'm wondering how many people have just stopped listening to the podcast, scrubbed back 15 seconds to go, what did he say? Where are they from? What was that long word? Saskatchewan? Saskaboosh? Yeah. Sorry about that. My brain went off.
Hey, well, now you're making me tangent here. Way to go, Norm. You're going to make me tangent. I was just playing a game with a guy on Board Game Arena, Nathan. Shout out to Nathan, listener.
Poster, yeah.
Yeah, and he's from Atlanta. And he was mentioning, he's like, I couldn't remember where you're from. He says, is it from Saskatchewan? And he typed it in and he spelt it correctly, like beautifully, first time. And I said, there's a lot of people from Saskatchewan that don't even know how to spell Saskatchewan. Anyways, people in Saskatchewan like trick-taking games. And so Fox in the Forest is a cute little 2-player trick-taking game where you deal out 13 cards to each player, and then there'll be a small deck of cards that's left over. You flip over the top one, that determines the trump suit is. And the cards range from values of 1 to 11, and there is 3 different suits. And so it's just the standard trick-taking where if I play a card, the Jen has to follow suit if she's able to. Now, what's really cool with Fox in the Forest, though, is that all the odd-numbered cards have some sort of effect or ability on them, which kind of really makes the strategic play of when do I play these cards really unique, because there's the 1. If I play the 1 and I lose the trick, which you're probably going to do if you play the 1, but you get to lead. That the other person won the trick, but you then get the lead. Or there's the 3, which means you get to change the trump suit, possibly. Or the 5 gets you to draw another card and then put one back into the draw pile. There's the 7. If you win a 7, you get a point. I should forget to mention that the Fox in the Forest, you get to win points based on how many tricks you take. And that's the really cool thing about this one, is that if you take too many tricks, you don't get any points.
You bust.
But if you score... 10 to 13 tricks, you get to score 6 points.
Yeah, there's a sweet spot. Yeah.
But there's also, if you take 0 to 3 tricks, you can also score 6 points.
Yeah.
And then if you're in that sweet spot, that middle range, you only get maybe like 1 or 2 points for taking that many tricks. So there's that really interesting balance. Is like, with my hand of cards, am I going to aim for not taking tricks this time? Am I going to aim for trying to take a lot of tricks, but not too many? It's really, really quite interesting.
I have this game as well, and I absolutely have so much fun with this. And what I like the most as you're playing, like you said, with all these rule breaker cards, that all of a sudden you recognize strategies that are developing. Because there's times where I'll be playing, and then all of a sudden, Ken will look at me and go, oh man, you're dumping your cards. And I'll be trying to lose on purpose. And he's like, oh, you're dumping. Oh, and he's trying to recover by basically forcing me to win a trick, at least one of them, so that I don't, have this, you win no tricks, you get 6 points. So it's interesting because as far as trick taking goes, there's so many different rule breakers that let you just dance around, that architecture of trick taking. Yeah, I like that game a lot.
Yeah, and then what I just read about too is that I think just this past year there is another one called Fox in the Forest Duet. You're holding it up right now, which is the same mechanism, but apparently it's a cooperative trick taking game, and I'm interested in exploring what that means. But.
Okay, so a couple points I can make. First, Kaiser exists, so I don't know why there needs to be any other trick-taking games.
Because we're from Saskatchewan, and we grew up playing Kaiser like a billion times.
And Orion Coke.
Second, you guys are suckers because you just need a deck of cards. You guys are buying all these unique trick-taking games when all trick-taking games can be taken care of with a deck of cards.
Yeah, but then I got to remember what the card number does. You don't get the cutesy animal art.
That's what it is. You just wanted the cutesy animal art.
We're participating in the machine of the hobby.
No, we're just suckers.
Yeah.
We're absolutely suckers.
No, you know what? We're lazy board gamers. It's like, give me the artwork and the rules. I'm fine. Just paint it on. I'll give you some money for that. Absolutely. Yeah,
but Ian's absolutely 100% right. You could just play this with a regular deck of cards.
Play Kaiser.
Yeah,
or just play Kaiser. Or hearts, or spades, or queens.
Kaiser's dangerous though. I mean, it's just like that whole Puerto Rico thing. If you're playing Kaiser with some elite level Kaiser players and you botch, oh man, there's table flipping going on from your partner, right?
Yeah. Oh yeah. Apparently in my family, we've played, and I'm pretty sure that I know strategies of Kaiser, but my family makes me feel dumb when it comes to Kaiser.
Oh man, there's like such passive
just because of Kaiser, Ryan.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
Oh, that was good. That was a good cue with the music.
This episode of Cardboard Conjecture is proudly sponsored by Dragon's Den Games, located in the Louis VIII Mall on 8th Street in Saskatoon. Swing by Dragon's Den Games and let Darren, Al, and the awesome staff help you out in search for great board games, role-playing games, miniature systems, and all of the related accessories. Be a part of their gaming communities that have scheduled events in their great gaming area. Dragon's Den Games, Louis VIII Mall on 8th Street in Saskatoon.
It's the news.
Welcome back. I think Ryan's going to do that ancient news flash. I was going to say ticker tape, but it kind of ticker tape. Morris Cody.
Come on.
It's news and topics of interest. So
I've got one. I've got one.
We've got something live and we've got something pre-recorded. So let's start with the live. So I know I'm not all in the grill on this one because I had this game and I got rid of it because it just didn't scratch my itch. But you guys have something to talk about. What is it?
Yeah, because as at the time of this recording, so today is June 15th, tomorrow June 16th, the Kickstarter is releasing for Terraforming Mars Big Box, which everybody's like, oh, that's it. That's the big Terraforming Mars news that Stronghold Games has been teasing this entire time. I was so hoping that they were going to finally say Terraforming Mars Legacy.
Yes.
Everybody wants Terraforming Mars Legacy. Stephen Bonacore, make it happen now. But we're not here to talk about Legacy and what we want out of the Legacy game because I'll probably play that thing like 10 times. But they're coming out with the big box. And so what the news is, you'll once you click on the Kickstarter link, because you probably already paused the episode and went to go check this out. All they're doing for the big box is they're releasing a box to hold all of the expansions that have been released so far with some fancy insert trays. Oh, but to grab your attention, to make you really want to get that acquisition disorder triggered, is that they're 3D printing all of the forest and city and special tiles. You know, the ones that have already been out there on like Etsy and everything like that for like ever. But apparently these ones are going to be like better.
Am I getting the sense from your vocal tone that there's a sense of cash grab going on?
Well, if it's true, and I'll figure this out tomorrow. Once I check, I want to actually like check it out. The rumored price point on the big box with all these special plastic tiles and stuff like that,
Deluxified kind of thing, yeah.
Well, no, it's not even that. You're not even getting the game inside this box. You're just getting a box, to hold all this stuff. $99 US.
Oh, sorry, but I got to weigh in, man.
For a box with some 3D printed tiles and some fancy insert.
See,
and maybe like 3 promo cards.
I was a kid when Mattel came out with the Star Wars empty box and coupon Christmas gift. So I'm going to say they sucked when they did that, and I'm gonna call sucked on this one too. It's $90 for a cardboard box.
No, $100. You missed it by 10.
Missed by 10. So
US.
So Canadian, that's about $3,000 for no man. That I don't know. To me, that's just feeling like you're grinding people just because you know that the completionists will be all over.
Grinding people because. I mean, people will pay, I guess. I don't know.
Well, this thing is absolutely good because Terraforming Mars is the number 3 game. Man. It's the number 3 game on BGG right now. Yeah. There's 1 billion people that own this game, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to like I said, this thing's going to fund in like either I would say within the first hour or so. This thing's going to fund. It's going to happen. People are going to pay money for it. This is also coming from the guy who bought the Scythe Legendary. I've bought in just a box for a game. The Scythe Legendary box.
But here's the thing,
it wasn't $100 though.
No, that wasn't $100.
And Scythe was a game that had so many expansions that actually fitting it into the regular box was really difficult, right?
Oh, like next to impossible.
Now I don't have Turmoil. The Turmoil is kind of where I drew the line from my Terraforming Mars expansions, but all the other ones fit in the box just fine. I don't know how much more stuff Turmoil has. You can maybe add to that. But for me, I don't need a big box. Everything is there. It's all in the regular box.
And you don't even have an insert. You don't have an insert for it. It just fits.
No. Yeah, it just fits.
And so I have the Turmoil expansion, and what it added is that actually it improved, because I got the Kickstarter version, the double layered player boards. So the thing,
and I ordered
slide
those,
around, and so but fitting those in, no problem. It has some more tiles, it has some more boards, it has quite a few more cards, but I can still fit it in my Terraforming Mars box as is without an insert. Yeah,
so this big box is necessary, whereas Scythe that was necessary for people who wanted everything in one box,
and it wasn't $100,
and it was not $100.
That's I don't know. I'm not going to tell people how to spend their money, but there's no way to do that.
And the 3D tiles are cool, but I actually don't like them. You know what I mean? I can see how somebody would look at this because there's lots of cool little details like the lava flowing from the volcano and stuff like that. But
is it necessary?
Tiles. Well, no, it's absolutely not necessary.
Is it going to stop the gameplay? Right. So I don't know, but I mean, you know what? Because Ryan and I, we talked about this about an episode coming down that we're working on. Is everybody wants to bling out their game, right? So if this is how someone wants to bling out their copy of Terraforming Mars, then
if Terraforming Mars is your absolutely favorite number 1 game of all time, and you don't have upgraded tiles or anything like that yet, maybe this is something you want to do, but I don't.
Okay, so
that Terraforming Mars big box,
you're gonna pass, Ryan.
And this is coming from Mr. I like blinged out things, and there's so many other games I could buy in the meantime for $100.
You're gonna click on that thing on the last day. I know it. And there's a long pause from this introspective analysis going, wait, he does have a point. I'm my fingers going right to the pledge button now.
No, not going to happen.
You can buy 10 trick taking games with different artwork on them.
There you go.
For that price.
Wow, that was a meta of a joke. That was awesome. That was deep, man. Yeah.
What else have we been doing in the news?
Well, let's use this moment for you to set up our pre-recorded piece, and don't give out too much because you're gonna
right,
do the interview.
Because I teased on the last episode. I said, hey, we talked about the Coded Chronicle games designed by Shen Fung Lim and Jay Cromier, and I said, hey, we should reach out to Jay and Shen for the give us some details, and so we did.
Yeah,
and we did, and Jay wasn't able to be on the interview, but Shen was able to meet with us, and so I did a little interview with him to give us a little bit of a lowdown on the Coded Chronicles games that are coming out. Let's take a listen. This episode is proudly supported by the amazing team at Breakout Escape and Board Game Lounge right here in Saskatoon. Using industry-leading technology, Breakout Escape's escape rooms are all 100% uniquely designed by the team, ensuring their patrons have maximum fun while staying safe. As well, they are a fully licensed board game lounge with over 400 titles to select from to ensure fun for every gamer, new and experienced. Be sure to check them out at breakoutsask.com. At Breakout Escapes and Game Lounge, they believe that life is more fun when you play games. Thank you, Sen, for doing this.
Oh, no problem.
So on our previous episode, I highlighted in our news segment that you and Jay have been working on something really that I find exciting.
Okay.
Because I gobble up everything that is escape room style and puzzles and all that stuff. So when I heard your team has been doing something escape room like, I got very excited.
Well, I'm glad to hear that because we're excited too.
Oh, awesome. So I guess my leading thing is going to be with this escape room style experience. You're calling it Coded Chronicles.
Yeah.
So I guess give us a sense of what Coded Chronicles is going to be like.
So do you remember those games like in the 90s, maybe even in the 80s? Yeah, there were some in the 80s. Like Police Quest and Space Quest and King's Quest, and then it evolved into like Day of the Tentacle and games like Monkey Island and Monkey Island 2.
Okay.
And the Fate of Atlantis. So I'm talking about like point and click adventure games.
Yes.
Where you would point on something, click on it with your mouse, and it would tell you, whether or not you could interact with something or tell you whether or not you could do something with this other thing. So you'd take something from your inventory and then you'd put it into the screen and it would say, that won't work or whatever, right? And so we've done that very similar type of thing with our Coded Chronicles system, which is a way to basically make a point and click adventure in a board game style, I guess. I mean, like that's quintessentially what it is. The idea behind it is that when you do things, you'll get a number and then you'll go to a book and you'll read the number, the entry for the number. And it sounds like, well, that sounds simple, but it's better than that because the entries are broken up between different characters. So the first Coded Chronicles game that we did is Scooby-Doo. And Scooby-Doo being my favorite thing ever, like my number one my number one American or North American made animated series ever. And I watch a lot of animated series, so saying something is my number one is a pretty big deal.
Wow.
And so I have Scooby-Doo is the only thing in my life that has ever given me a nightmare. I also remember like every episode. So I've seen every single thing that is a Scooby-Doo thing in the history of the world.
So you would be like the leading expert on Scooby-Doo.
Well, I don't know if I'm an expert, but I've seen everything. I've consumed everything to the point where it's like I remember all the episodes. I've, remember the series past that. What's New Scooby-Doo, all the way to, Mystery Inc. and Scooby-Doo and the 13th Ghost. And I think I've blacked out the period of time when Scrappy-Doo was a thing, because I hate Scrappy-Doo. But I've recently, read the comic book series, which was Scooby-Doo Apocalypse, which is, post-apocalyptic version of Scooby-Doo. So I like Scooby-Doo a lot. And this all goes to the story of Crowded Chronicles, of course, because when you get a number from, saying, oh, let's look at this number, then you go and read the number. Oh, I should tell you that how do you get those numbers is you move a pawn, like a character, like say Shaggy or Velma or Daphne, and you take them and you move them next to the number that you want to interact with. And then they have a number on their pawn telling you what they're doing with the number on the card or the number on the map.
Okay.
So just like in, excuse me, all those point and click games, you kind of knew what to click on. In a way, finding the thing to click on was not really hard.
Yeah.
There are numbers on our board. Now, that doesn't mean our boards are going to always be just the numbers. Sometimes you have to look at the board itself. Like things that don't have numbers are very important as well. Like counting the number of whatever on the board might be a thing, right? But they don't have numbers on them. So let's say you have Velma. Velma has the number 1. The number 1 is tied to the ability to probably investigate or look. I can't remember what we called it. I think investigate, because it's Velma, right? So Velma investigates this door, and the door might have the number 323 on it. So it end up being 1323. So you turn to the book 1323. It's Velma's book, and says, hey, I see a door there. This door has a rusty doorknob. I can't seem to open it. And then you might eventually find a tool that helps you do that, right? So all the books are written in the voice of the character. So Jay and I spent a lot of time writing these things. And it's the nicest thing ever that ever happened to me in games. Not the nicest thing, but like the most validating thing that's ever happened to me in board games so far was when the lawyer from Warner Brothers, who owns the rights to Scooby-Doo, said,
right.
So tell, which episode did you use to make this game? None. We didn't use any episode. We made it all up. It's in our heads. But it sounded so much like a Scooby-Doo story. I don't know, watching 7,000 episodes of Scooby-Doo might make me, again, like you said, an expert in Scooby-Doo in some regards. Whether or not I remember all the episodes, at least I know how the episodes really work. And how to write, right. Like, this is what Shaggy should say, and this is what Scooby would say, and this is what Freddy would say. Like Freddy would definitely say, okay, gang, let's go, do this thing. And Shaggy would say, well, like, I don't know, man. I don't know if that's going to happen if we do that. Right. So all the characters have their own book, and each book is filled with every option for everything that is possibly able to be done in the game by that character.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Wow.
So
that would be a feat.
It's a lot, but it makes the game very different than, say, an unlock or an escape, right?
Right.
Which are great games in their own right. They're probably about a half the price of a Coded Chronicles game, but they also take like a quarter of the time. So our games aren't timed. Our games are meant to be experienced because we wrote the story. We want you to read the story. We want you to play the game and finish it. Our games are also different in that they're not destructible. So you can just pack it back up and hand it over to, Norm's family, and then Norm can play the game with his.
Right.
And we were just on a podcast with the team from USAopoly just today about this, and USAopoly is saying, yeah, we recognize that, that might hurt sales in some regards, but hopefully it will increase sales in other regards because we're doing this as a line, right? So that, excuse me, if you like this and Norm likes this, then when Norm sees the next one that is for a genre that maybe his family really likes, but your family doesn't like, he'll buy that one. You might not. So the idea of it being a series of games where we're using escape room like puzzling and but merging it with IP-based storylines and character storylines, I think is what sets it apart. Because if you, like you said, are a consumer, an avid consumer of the escape style games, you know that as good as they are, there's not a lot of story to them. There's not a lot of
like when like my wife and I play an exit game, we're not really concerned about when we flip over that card and we solve the puzzle correctly, and that card has some flavor text. That's not what we're worried about. We're like, oh no, we're going on to the next puzzle because we're timed.
Because it's timed, right? So you don't have that time. You don't have the time to absorb or enjoy the narrative, which is great. If all you want is like 45 minutes or an hour of
straight up puzzle solving and
right? But the other thing that I get, and that really, as a person who plays escape rooms as well when possible, is that I don't like escape rooms that don't have a good story, that don't have a thematic tie, that make my brain say, well, why is this here? Why is there a Sudoku in the middle of an ancient
sinking ship?
Yeah, exactly, right? So it takes me out of the narrative. Like if it was that, I would much rather you didn't have a theme, that you didn't put it in a pirate ship, because it shouldn't be.
Right. Yeah. It's just like just give me 10 puzzles and let's go.
Yeah. Like in a non-themed room or something like that. So I'm very much about story. Story ties these puzzles together. Story gives us a reason to go on and do the next puzzle. Story gives us a reason to keep on playing. Story gives us a reason to remember the experience with somebody else. Remember that time in the story when you did this and they said this? Oh, that was awesome.
Yeah, and it sounds like the way that you've developed this is that there could be multiple ways of getting to a particular story point, because you said all the characters can interact with any given thing, so there could be different ways that you may be able to. You're like, my experience with the game is probably going to be different than Norm's experience with the game.
It can be. So
I mean, okay.
There isn't going to be a different way to solve the puzzle, but there can be different routes to get to solve the same puzzle in the same way. Do you know what I mean?
Oh yeah, okay.
You may read things a little bit differently. There is
one way to solve the puzzle.
Correct path, and there's one correct path through the story. But by going through different routes of the story, you're not likely going to be super penalized by doing that. There are some things, like when you're solving a puzzle, if you do the wrong thing, there's like a penalty. But if you are just kind of exploring around, and so Shaggy, Shaggy's ability, if Velma has investigate and Freddy has build, because he builds traps, right? And Daphne has use. Shaggy has eat, because that's what Shaggy does.
He eats.
Yeah, and he could try to eat, a piece of candy. He could try to eat a piano. He could try to eat a book. And you can do that. And we write all the things for all of these elements that have been entered. So my hope is that people enjoy the story and the hilarity of the characters as much as they do just solving the puzzles. The puzzles, on a scale of hard to not so hard, I mean, it's a family game. This one's for families, so they're not super, super hard. They're probably like a, 3, 5, 7 at the hardest. This isn't like a burn your brain out. Some of them can be, But if they are, it's more likely that you did something weird or thought some way weird and stuck on that path. Do you know what I mean?
Okay, yeah, you read into it a
Yeah,
certain
you
way, and you're not changing your
yeah,
mind
yeah,
at
yeah,
this
yeah.
particular time.
And the reason why this particular puzzle, this particular set of puzzles, I wouldn't rate as like super hard, is because it's meant to be a family game based on the IP, right? It's so yeah, families, kids would read it together, and you can solve the puzzles together.
Sure.
Yeah, so that's where that is.
Yeah, so like it sounds like you've done a really good job. You answered my question about like how is this going to be different in the escape room style line of game, because there's a million of them out there now by
Yeah.
this point and everything. Yeah, I'm really digging the story aspect. That's what's really kind of drawing me in, because my wife, as a gamer, she appreciates games that do have that narrative
Mhm.
behind it, and so I can see her liking she already likes Exit and Unlock and all those other ones, but I can see her probably really starting to dig into this, where she can like, hey, I can read something, I can get into a character, kind of like how we kind of got into like time stories almost.
Yeah. It's a little, yeah, I would say it's a little more like time stories without the kind of grind of time stories, like we
Yeah,
failed, let's go do that part again. That's
yeah,
actually my least favorite part of time stories.
I
And
think that's everybody's least favorite part.
I know the like some of the future some of the more recent modules have ways around that, I think, but I had kind of stopped playing them with the first couple of things because it's like I don't want to grind through this
Yeah,
again just to get to where I was.
yeah.
Yeah.
So you mentioned this is you wanted to make this as a line, a
Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
So are there some other, like, I know The Shining has already been kind of like introduced as going to be like the second one.
Yes, that is in the box, well, in the can, like, so it's getting produced right now.
Cool.
So the Shining is the second game of the Code of Chronicle lines, and we're working on the third and fourth ones now. That I can't tell you exactly what they're about, but it's let me just tell you, it's diverse. So
Oh,
if you think that Shining and Scooby-Doo
we're
is
quite diverse.
now we're saying there's even more diversity in the in between things of those.
Ooh,
There's a lot of options for us to do this, because we can basically take any story and try to work that into our adventure system, the Code Chronicle system.
yeah.
So some of them take more work than others. Like the one for The Shining was very difficult. Scooby-Doo is easy because it's episodic, right? So it's just like
Right.
making another episode that nobody ever saw. Great. If you think you saw it, I did even better, right? Oh, I remember this episode. It's like, yeah, okay, you remember the episode. But The Shining was hard because that was the only thing, right? There's
Right.
the book that we don't have rights to. There's the movie, and then there's Doctor Sleep, which is this is not Doctor Sleep. This is The Shining. This is distinctly the Overlook Hotel, and this is distinctly that Kubrick film. So it was
So
hard.
So there's going to be things that we've seen.
Oh yeah.
Oh, cool.
Oh yeah. Like if you're a fan of the film, we've tried to tie things in. But because it is a linear film, even as wonky and weird as the film is, and let me tell you, if you are a Kubrick fan or you are a Shining fan, there are like a billion conspiracy theories about the Overlook Hotel because of the way that Kubrick shot the film. None of the rooms that you think are connected are actually connected, like physically.
Yes.
But people have mapped this all out, and it messed Jay and I up for probably a good month. No, seriously, like I have maps. I don't know if they're here anymore. I might have thrown them out in anger because it was frustrating. I have maps where I'm cutting out things and like pasting them to other things to see, does this connect, and can't be this long. How is it this long? And in the end, we just sort of said, okay, and we had to talk to the licensor about this. Our version of the Overlook is the version of the Overlook that we're playing in. Whether it's canon or not, they're not going to say because they don't care in the end.
Sure,
But
they're just
fans
bringing
really do. Fans are wow. Fans are all up in this business about, you see this room? There could be a window here because on the other side there's a hallway. So what's it looking out into, right? Which is interesting because we were going to actually use those as parts of puzzles, but we ended up doing something a little bit different. So anyway, there's some really cool stuff in The Shining. What we had to do with The Shining game is because it's not an episodic series, is we took it from a very key point in the movie. Because if you've seen The Shining, which, I mean, if you haven't seen it and you're into, suspense, thriller, horror, what are you doing listening to this? Go watch The Shining.
Go watch The Shining right now.
And then come back. But if you've seen the movie, you know that probably a good 63% of it, maybe 60.
I like that number.
Yeah, 63% of it is is leading up to the really important parts of The Shining. And it's not that those 63% aren't important. It's that there's nothing active that players would want to do during that time in terms of exploration, and there's no real impetus for them to do anything because they don't know what the problem is. The other thing is, in very, very much in almost any game that I make, I don't really let players play villains. Because I'm a psych teacher, right? So I have this big problem with people playing villains in a game where they're actually trying to kill people. Like if it's a villain that's robbing a bank, I'm not so upset about that. But this is this is Jack Torrance. This is a man who's trying to murder his wife and child. I don't want a player playing that.
No.
So instead of having like Scooby-Doo, where we have 5 playbooks, in this one, we really only have 2 major playbooks, which are Danny and Wendy. And the story starts when Wendy drags Jack, into the pantry. And that's where the story starts. So that classic scene where they're talking between the door. And then the game begins. So all the stuff before that, which is really just exposition, right, doesn't really take place, but it impacts in some ways. Or we call back to it. Like we talk about, trying to call the ranger station all the time, because she did that many, many times and then goes and finds that, okay, how do I use this thing? It's broken, right? So we make up for things that you don't see in the movie. Like in the movie, the radio is broken, the snowcat is broken, all these things are broken. But what would happen if you fix those things, right? Or what would the puzzle be about that? So we're using all the elements of the story that Kubrick told from King to make puzzles out of that.
Wow.
And then we take it a full supernatural bent as well. And we use the Shining and the ghosts of the kids, the 2 sisters, who aren't twins, by the way. We use them an awful lot. Dick Halloran comes in and talks, and all sorts of interesting things where I think fans of The Shining are going to kind of see this other side of things, right? So it's almost like not a reimagining, but a like these extra bits, these extra scenes. Yeah, so imagine, and I use this in storytelling all the time, imagine if you had a starting point, which was, here's the pantry, and then an end point, Jack's in the maze frozen. Well, what happens in between here? It could have been anybody's guess. But things that don't happen in the movie don't happen in the story, right? Things that happen in the movie happen in the story. That's kind of how we had to do it. So you will never outright kill Jack. You can't. Right. That sounds like an easy solution to a problem, but you're never.
That's not the way the story is supposed to play out.
Exactly, right? And things that do happen in the thing, like Jack smashing through the door, that happens. right? But how does it happen, and how does that become a puzzle to solve? And so there's lots of hallmarks. We call them like set pieces in our games. They have to happen. They have to be there. Like if you're playing The Shining, tell me something you think should be in the game, and I'll tell you if it's there.
Like the hallway of blood.
Yes, so the hallway of blood is in there. It's actually not much of a thing because a lot of the stuff that we talked about, it's so how would that change the game? How would because it was really a vision, right? So that type of stuff is like, how does that become a game set piece? It definitely is a set piece and it's definitely in the game, but how does it become something that's part of a puzzle? So I will admit that we did not do a great job with that one, but it is in the game. Other things that are in the game that you might remember from the movie are things like, let me think.
Trying to think here. Norm, do you have one?
He's muted.
He is muted.
But if you have one, let me know. What do you think?
The whole concept of red rum.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Oh right, red rum.
Yeah, we actually tried to work that in even more, but it got really weird. So there is like a lot more talking with Tony, a lot more of that, a lot more of like using The Shining, because it's a really great tool as a story writer to have the supernatural involved. So the idea of things that are reversed, we had this whole idea, we had this concept that we wanted to bring into the game where we were thinking, if there's mirrors in the room, then you have to use the opposite numbers to get in, but it just got way too confusing for people. So but mirrors are definitely in there. Mirrors are a thing. There's all sorts of little like callbacks and love letters, basically little love letters to the movie all through it. So yeah,
this whole concept has got me really juiced up now.
Yeah, well,
I really want to play this now. That this narrative and these, like you say, these callbacks. Even when you're talking about like Scooby-Doo, you're making it feel like a Scooby-Doo episode, and
yeah, it feels exactly like a Scooby-Doo episode, like right up to the very end, right where things happen.
So whose idea was it for The Shining?
Not ours. We don't.
That wasn't yours. Okay.
We don't pick any of the licenses ever.
Oh, okay.
They give us the licenses to work with. They say, "Would you like to do this?" And we say yes. They just happen to hit on our, like, as Jay and I are collective, us, I guess. They hit on our favorite, childhood cartoon and our favorite, horror suspense film.
Awesome.
Cool.
Awesome.
Yeah, it's good talking to you guys.
This was fun.
Excellent. Yeah, so give me a call anytime and we'll chit chat.
That sounds good. I'll send out the email, and once we get it, we'll do the follow up.
Yeah, and hopefully Jay will be available, so that'd be great.
Yep, we got the whole time zone thing backwards. Damn Saskatchewan.
All right.
That was fun.
Yeah.
All right.
Cool.
Okay.
We'll talk to you later.
Thank you very much.
No problem. Bye-bye.
This episode is proudly supported by Mr. Dice Guy online board game retailer located right here in Saskatoon. Mr. Dice Guy is always stocking the hot new titles, as well as restocking all-time favorites. They even have a ding and dent section for previously played titles. They offer free shipping across Canada on all orders over $200 or free local pickup if you're in the Saskatoon area. Check them out at MrDiceGuy.com. Saskatoon's Mr. Nice Guy is Mr. Dice Guy.
All right, welcome back. We are going to talk about some specific games right now, and I'm gonna offer this out. Anybody want to take lead on this?
I can go.
You go, there you go. Ryan, I know that it was a shtick in the intro, but I don't want to review this game ever because I can never pronounce it. So you go right ahead.
Sure. So I want to talk about a game that I'm just going to dodge I'm going to dodge the name as much as possible. But it's a game that I've been playing a lot lately on Board Game Arena.
Sorry, I missed the title. What's the title of this game again?
I am going to be reviewing. Stop with the shenanigans. Teotihuacan, City of Gods. Did I get it? Oh, good. Designed by Daniele Tassini. Ooh, one of my favorite designers. Published by NSKN Games. And it came out, when did it come out? It came out like last year, I think. 2018. And so it's already a couple years old, but Teotihuacan is a lot of people will call it the spiritual successor to one of Ian's favorite games that like to play, Tzolk'in, the Mayan calendar.
Yeah.
And so there's a lot of similarities. I'm going to get to those similarities. But it also plays quite a bit differently than Tzolk'in, the Mayan calendar. So in Teotihuacan, I'm just going to do the little brief overview here.
The nuts and bolts
is a travel back in time to the greatest city in Mesoamerica. Witness the glory and the twilight of the powerful pre-Columbian civilization. Strategize, accrue wealth, gain the favor of the gods, and become the builder of the magnificent pyramid of the sun. Which apparently is what Teotihuacan means. I learned that.
You're dancing with that name now.
So in Teotihuacan, I'm going to be corrected so many times. I think Normie's to mute his mic.
No, because the laughter is awesome. Sorry.
So I'm just going to start saying in this game. In this game, what you're going to be doing is you're going to be taking one of 8 actions. There's 8 actions across around the edge of this player board, of the game board, and in the middle of the player board is the pyramid. There's actually these nice big thick wooden tiles that will be eventually forming a pyramid. And what you're going to be doing is it's a dice worker placement game, but in the sense of the dice not being rolled, they're just kind of there to track the experience of your workers. So you start off with level 1 workers. So all your dice are set to level 1. And through certain actions, you'll level up your workers to a 2, to a 3, to a 4, to allow you to take more powerful actions to eventually, once it gets to a 6, then your worker is so experienced that it's going to ascend. And what ascension does is that worker now passes away. You get some sort of bonuses. There's some bonuses you can claim for ascension. And then you get that dice back as a level 1 worker back at the very beginning of the player track. And so what you're going to be wanting to do is that across these 8 actions, there's 3 resource gathering actions. There's wood, stone, and gold, typically what these games like to have. Then there's also a pyramid building action. There is a pyramid decorating action. There's contributing and building to the Avenue of the Dead. And then there's also there's some technology tiles that you can acquire and other actions. So what you're going to be trying to do is score the most points. And by how do you score all these points is what you really want to do is contribute to building the temple. Building the temple contributes lots of points in this game. But there's also certain technologies that when you have those technologies, they'll grant you some bonus points for some actions that you take. There is end of game scoring that there's 3 temple tracks, much like in Tzolk'in, there's 3 temples. There's some temple tracks that you can climb up. And at the tops of those tracks, there are some end of game scoring conditions. Like say, one of the end of game scoring conditions is get 9 points per technology tile that you've contributed to, or one is just score 15 points, or one is score this many points for however many things that you've built.
And just to clarify, your goal is to get the most points.
Most
right?
points.
That's what
yes.
you said? Okay.
Yeah. Euro through and through. Yeah. And I must say about these temple tracks too, is that as you ascend on these temple tracks, one temple is for just gets you points. There's the points again. So lower levels get you 1 point per step. Then there's 2 points per step, 3 points per step. There's another temple track that allows you to get resources. So like as you go up there, you can get wood, stone, gold. And then there's another temple track that as you go up, you get cocoa. And cocoa is your main currency in this game. Much like corn was the currency in Tzolk'in, cocoa is the currency in Teotihuacan. Now, when you use your workers, you can take your worker and you can move it 1, 2, or 3 spaces. And when you move it 1, 2, or 3 spaces, what you're actually going to do is before you set down your worker, you're going to decide, am I going to take the main action of the tile? Am I going to just gain cocoa, or am I going to lock it away into what's called a worship spot? And I'll explain what worshiping does later. So if I want to do the main action, what I actually got to do though, is I got to consider how many different people are already on that tile. If there's already been 2 other players on that tile, I have to pay 2 cocoa in order to take the action. If I want to collect cocoa, though, if I don't have enough cocoa to take the action, I can collect cocoa, which means I take a look at how many players are on that tile, and I collect 1 more cocoa than however many players are already on that tile. So if there's already 2 players there, I would collect 3 cocoa. And then the last thing I said you could do is you could do a worship action, which means you can ascend on one of the temple tracks. And then there's these little other bonus tiles that you can collect, and they give you a whole variety of different things. Like they give you some special powers that you can do, or there's some set collecting that you can do. A lot of different neat things that these little tiles can do for you. So what you're going to do in Teotihuacan here is that you're going to do this. You're going to go around the table so many times, and every time that it comes to the last player, there's the round marker is going to go down 1 spot. And what this is doing is it's tracking this eclipse. And so the eclipse tracks how long a round is going to be. And so every time it passes by the last player, it's going to ascend and keep going until it actually reaches this end of the round spot, which then you'll do some end of round scoring, much in like in Tzolk'in. And then you're going to do this 3 times. You're going to go through 3 rounds. What's neat, though, is that when you do that ascension thing, when your dice worker gets to a 6, the ascension, that eclipse round tracker is actually going to move forward more than what it would do on a normal turn. So if you're paying attention, if somebody's going to upgrading the workers to 6s, that end of round is going to come a lot faster than what you probably were normally planning for. If Board Game Arena has taught me anything about this game, is that I suck at it. I'm getting a little bit better at Tzolk'in. Like Tzolk'in, I can actually see the gears and where I'm going to want to take my actions. I'm finding it a lot harder in Teotihuacan. And I know the temple tracks are very important in Tzolk'in too for getting some end of round scoring. They are hugely important in Teotihuacan. Like if you're not going for at least 1 or 2 of those, getting to the top of 1 or 2 temples, you're playing bad in this game. So, okay, and I've only just scratched the surface. There's so many different combos.
I'm just getting the sense that this is one of those games where you got to play the more you play, the better you get.
Yeah. The one thing I forgot to mention about when you're moving your dice around, the more of your colored dice that are on a spot, the more powerful the action can be.
Cool.
So if I have 3 dice if I take my one guy and I have 3 dice on the action spot, I'm going to get a really powerful action, as opposed to if I just had 1 dice on a particular location.
Cool. You ready for some opinions, man?
Sure. So in the traditional going outside in the box and the box art here. So this is your standard like Ticket to Ride size Euro box. And it's got some gorgeous that what they say, that Mesoamerican artwork.
Yeah. I'm looking at a image of the cover, and it's definitely got its theme down, and that's for sure.
And the components are your standard, like your wooden resource components. But what really makes this game pop on the table is that center pyramid that you're building. And I forgot to mention about the pyramid. There's a little bit of a spatial puzzle thing going on, whereas when you go to, there's these symbols that are on the tiles. But when you go to place down a pyramid tile from the pyramid building action, if you're able to match up the symbols on where you're going to place the tile, you get some bonus points.
Cool.
And so there's kind of like a neat little way that you can score some bonus points by building up the temple. And I guess I should also say too, this game can end after 3 rounds, or more typically in a 3 and 4 player game, what could possibly happen is that the temple gets built completely, and that will end the game immediately once the temple's completely built. There's nothing left to do in the game, really. And yeah, so the table presence of this game is gorgeous. From the art to the tiles, it's a very well produced game.
Right on.
I must say.
Right on.
Rulebook is very good. It's quite lengthy, but that's a good thing here because there's a lot going on. And it does very good job of explaining all the different types of actions, what happens on your action. There's actually a really good, this will pique Norm's interest. There's a really cool solo mode in the game too. And that's developed by David Turksey, who does lots of different solo modes he designs solo modes for different games.
Yep.
So Rulebook is very good, very clean. There's no wasted space. It's text and pictures.
Tight.
It's text, pictures, and examples. It's very, very, very well done.
Right on.
Okay, so let's get to my thoughts about this game. And what I'm going to do here is I'm going to be comparing it to Tzolk'in, because that's what everybody's going to compare this to, because it is known as the spiritual successor to Tzolk'in. What this is kind of doing is Tzolk'in had the time mechanism of the gears. You place down your worker and you let them sit on the gears while it moves around, and then eventually you're going to take the worker off to perform the action. Here, the time mechanism is moving your dice around the board and eventually upgrading them and giving them experience until they get to a certain level. So it's a much different time mechanism used here than say like Tzolk'in. This game takes a lot longer to play than Tzolk'in. And this one has, I think in Tzolk'in, I get AP. Like I can sit there and stare at the board for a while. But here, man, there's so many different options what you can do with your dice. And depending on where your dice are located, moving 1, 2, or 3 spaces. And do I lock in my dice? Because when I lock it into a worship spot, I can't move that dice anymore. It's stuck there until I have to actually use an action and spend some cocoa to move him again. And around and around they go. Oh, it's a beautiful puzzle. Tzolk'in's also a beautiful puzzle. But
sounds like it rewards efficiency.
This one definitely, like, okay, so I've already played this game, like, I think I've played it already 10 times on Board Game Arena, and I've lost all 10 games absolutely horribly. I've gotten better. I've gotten better at every game, but there's always seemed to be another player that he says, oh man, he's beautiful minding all of the moves and his dice are just in the right spots. And
cool.
But so would I like this game better? Do I like this game better than Tzolk'in? I think I like Tzolk'in still better. I think it's a cleaner, but this game it's a different beast on its own.
That's an interesting conclusion. Okay, yeah. It's
a different beast. That I own both Tzolk'in and Teotihuacan. I will play them in different circumstances.
All right.
I don't even know if that even makes sense. Like I like playing it. Like if I had to choose between them, I probably play Zolkin. But I don't know. But Teotihuacan just keeps making me want to come back. But mainly because I haven't figured it out yet. Like, I think that I've got it figured out, but then I keep playing. And I'm like, man, I'm just not efficient with my actions yet, and I just want to. And I want to get there. Whereas Zolkin, I'm starting to get to the point where I'm like, okay, I've got my plan. I know how to execute my plan. I'm going to try to do it to the best of my ability. Teotihuacan, I still haven't figured that out. And I think that's why I keep coming back to it. Some people would then say, like, I've made these comparisons. Is it worth owning both? Like, I own both. Is it worth owning both? And they are completely different games. Gameplay wise, even though they're made by the same designer and they have very similar themes and may look similar in nature, they do play out quite a bit differently. Whereas in one, you might understand the mechanism better. The other one might be just like, oh, it's a time crunch. I have no idea what I want to do. Okay, are we ready for what shelf is this on?
What shelf is this game sitting on? You can even put it in the context of the shelf that Zolkin is sitting on.
Well, it actually is on the same shelf that Zolkin is sitting, because I got this very similar themed games all clumped together. So physically, it's on the same shelf as Zolkin, but in the rating scale, I would put this below Zolkin. Zolkin is a very top shelf worthy game. This one I'm going to put on the middle shelf.
All right.
It's still worth owning. It's a different beast of its own. It's definitely not going to get traded anywhere because I haven't figured it out yet. I still need to play it more.
It's compelling.
Because I'll tell you the game too, because my wife, Jen, doesn't really like heavy games. This is quite a bit of a heavier game. I taught this to her, and on her learning game, she beat me.
But isn't that the rule for teaching a game, is that you can't?
No, I was trying.
Okay.
I was like, I got this strategy figured out. I'm going to try doing this now. Try to make these things combo together and make them more efficient. And then Jen's like, well, I'm just going to keep doing this because this scores a lot of points. And then she ended up winning. Though I've tried that strategy before and it never paid off for me. So I think I'm just not good at this game. Jen's very good at figuring out strategies. And just by me explaining, I was trying to do the teach because like this is one of those teaches where it takes a long time because you have to go through all those little nuances. Because you're like, you can do this and you can do this. And these are all the different things that score you points. Jen's always just like, let's just start playing.
Yeah.
Just explain it to me while I start playing. And I'm like, but you got to understand how this. She's like, I'll figure it out while I'm waiting. And she figured it out way before me. And you know, it's really good when she takes the rule book and she starts reading something and she hasn't asked you the question. She just takes the rule book and starts reading it.
That means you're in trouble.
And I was like, well, what do you have a question on? Nothing. And then puts it aside and we're like, oh.
Means she's got something planned.
So
cool.
Teotihuacan, do you hear me say it for one last time? Teotihuacan, middle shelf.
Middle shelf. Awesome. Ian, do you want to take the reins?
Sure.
Or do you want me to? Okay, go ahead.
Okay. So my game is Viva Java. So this is designed by T.C. Petty III and
TC.
Dice Hate Me Games. It came out in 2012, I believe. It plays 5 to 8. The box says 3 to 8. I'll talk about that. And it takes about an hour to play. I wouldn't say any more than an hour usually. So this is a game about coffee. So I love coffee.
I love coffee.
There we go. Norm is drinking coffee.
I was drinking coffee. That's why I couldn't respond.
There we go. So it's a game about coffee. Your goal is to make coffee blends. So what you are is you're a group of field researchers traveling the world to create the best coffee blends. The most traveled and resourceful employees will gain a gratuitous promotion and a chance to retire with a lifetime supply of coffee. That's the rundown from the book. But what you're trying to do is make the best blends based on different colors of coffee beans that you kind of throw into the mix. And the best blends go into the market, and you're trying to keep them in the market for as long as you can, because as long as they're in the market, they're going to keep scoring you points every turn. But better blends will come in, and your blend will kind of lose luster after a while, and eventually it's going to get kicked off the market. So you want to keep getting as many as you can in there to see if they can last as long as they can. There's a really cool mechanism here where you collect these little coffee beans and you put them into roasters, which are little drawstring bags, and any coffee beans you collect through the game, you throw in there. And when you're going to make your blend, you have to pull coffee beans. You're going to make a blend of 5 coffee beans, and you have to pull them from your bag without looking, right? So you have to try to hope you get the best combination of beans you can from the roasters. Now, the unique or interesting mechanism here is the idea that you actually temporarily team up with other players each turn. But once that turn is over, your partnership is over. You just need to partner with them to make a blend. You can't, well, there are some certain circumstances you can make it on your own, but usually you never blend by yourself. You make a coffee with somebody else. And this is awesome because this adds the interaction into the game, because you're depending on where continent you travel to make your coffee blends. Whoever goes to that continent with you, you guys have the opportunity to blend together, and you all have to contribute. And you're just pulling these beans out of the bag. And basically what you're trying to do is get, it really comes down to like poker hands, right? So 5 of one color is the best you can get, or 4 and 1, or a full house, right? So you're trying to get the best you can. And so depending on what the beans you've got and what the beans they've got, you can make a decision. Do we have a good chance of making something good here or not? Or you could be a jerk and completely lie to what you say they've got and sabotage them. But that takes a little bit more nuance to it.
That's kind of bitter, isn't it?
A little bit, yeah.
It's a coffee joke. It's a coffee joke.
Yeah, I see what you did there.
So what you're trying to do is team up with people, make blends, send them to the market, and get points. There's a little bit more to it than that. So there's things like research actions and research tracks that help you just do things better. So for example, it can help you pull beans, and you can actually put one back if it's not the one you wanted to pull. It can help you. You can actually invest in other people's blends so that you score the points as well without having to have contributed. There's a lot of cool little things like that. But that's essentially the game. I think it's great. The box art is really cool. It's got a little coffee tin on it, and I love the box art. I think it's
very
fantastic.
thematic. I like the retro 50s look of the label of the coffee.
Oh yeah. It's great. Yeah. The artwork in this is generally pretty awesome. The coffee blends that you make are these little cardboard slates, and they've got little artworks and clever little names to them. Oh yeah, it's really good. The coffee beans are basically they look like little coffee beans. There's something I got to point out. There's red. They're all different colors, but there's red and brown, and they are almost identical. So that always bugs people when we play, because it's really hard to tell them apart, especially if you've got like kind of low lighting in your game room.
Or you'd be like me and say, yeah, I've got a whole bunch of brown in my bag. And I start drawing them out, and I'm like, oh, wait, they're red. Sorry.
Yep.
No, you told me that they were brown. That happened.
Yeah, that could be a little
played.
frustrating. Yep.
Cool.
They've got drawstring bags. So everybody gets those drawstring bags. And so that's your coffee roaster, where you collect all your beans. That's a pretty cool component as well. I just think all around it looks awesome, right? There's a couple of fold out boards, but the graphic design here just fits. It really evokes the theme really well. The rulebook is really good. It's got lots of visuals. So everything that it's explaining, it's also showing, which is really nice.
Convenient. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. It's really good. There is, so like I said before, it's really a 5 to 8 player game. You can play with 3 or 4 players, but that kind of adds these helper cards into the mix. And I don't know what you guys think. My personal opinion, when you're trying to stretch your player limits, if you've got to add something really extra like that,
I was just thinking that. Yeah.
it's not worth it, right? That's
it's not
my
designed
opinion.
properly. Yeah.
So like if you're adding a dummy player, for example, to make a 2-player game work, I don't know if I just wouldn't bother playing.
And you know what, that to me just leads into another kind of potential topic discussion of when you design a game, don't try and tell me that it's 2 to 6 players when it should only be 4 and 5 players, just because you want to try and sell more copies, right?
Yeah.
So, but that's something completely different.
Yeah. That's right. They didn't put 1 or 2 players though. I think they saw that that's just stretching it way too far. Yeah. There are lots of elements of other games, so that, there's the idea of filling orders, which comes up a lot, right, in games.
Yeah.
The tech tracks is something that we see a lot, but the interaction and the team up aspect of this, that's what makes all these things feel different, because it's almost like they're all happening for different reasons, right? So the filling orders, well, you both have to do it. You both have to contribute to that without necessarily knowing what the other person's got.
All right.
You can ask them, but there's no guarantee they're telling the truth. And the randomness of the roaster bag also kind of adds some more interesting ideas to there as well. So you've really got to manage your roaster bags well. That's another really awesome thing. I would say this game is really cool because there's not a lot of like Euro strategy games that can actually play well with 8 players.
Mm-hmm.
But this game does really well with the more people because that mixes up who you work with every turn, right? You can have 2 or 3 people trying to make a blend together, and that's pretty cool. You're trying to make that all work. But then the next turn, you can be with completely other people, and it's really awesome. That fits in kind of a rare niche in a game collection. Like 7 Wonders is a Euro game that plays up to 7 players. That has a high player count as well. This is quite a bit different, especially because of that team up aspect.
Well, it doesn't sound. Yeah, it's this dynamic synergy.
Right.
I got the dice game. I don't have the original game, and that's not found in the dice game, at least from my solo experience. Yeah, so I am so intrigued in this idea that there's this dynamic synergy that has to exist with the creating of the blends. Yeah, it's cool.
Yeah, I think that's what makes it really work. This is kind of my hidden gem game because I don't know how popular it ended up being. But I remember once I saw a coffee game and I looked into this, I was like, I want that. And I got it specially ordered in for me. Nice. But it's a game I think needs more love. I just think it's so cool and it's so unique. Like I haven't really played a lot of other games that have that type of interaction. So I love it. I don't know if I'd call it top shelf. Maybe second from the top. Can we say that? Can that be my rating? Second from the top. That's where we're at.
It all depends on how many shelves your shelf has.
I guess so. Yeah.
No, that's awesome. I mean, like I said, I have the dice version, and all the positive check marks that you described are the same for the dice game. So yeah, everything follows suit. Yeah.
Yeah, this has been a really cool game. I remember the first time we've played it with Ian and Kim there, and yeah, you nailed it on the head there, Ian. It's the interaction. There's not too many really well implemented Euro games that have that interaction and the potential camaraderie between players. And then now the next turn, you are not my comrade anymore. Now I have to pair up with somebody else. Now I have to pair up with the lead, the person who's in the lead with points. And I don't want him to get any more points, but but there's also, I forgot to mention, there's a voting aspect to that too, right? You vote amongst the people that you're in your little group with on whether to actually blend or not. And so you can mess up somebody
by messing up the vote, right? And say, oh yeah, we'll blend this turn. Nope. I lied to you.
I
thought they were all brown.
Yeah.
I forgot about the voting aspect. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. This is, yeah. Just the being able to interact. The bag building of the beans is really cool too. Kind of gives you that kind of like that Orleans type of feeling. But this came out before Orleans. I'm pretty sure of, but.
And new players will probably just try to collect as many coffee beans as they possibly can. But really the trick is like trying to keep it svelte, trying to minimize how many different ones you've got in there.
Cool.
That's kind of where that's at. Yeah. But yeah, I love Viva Java. Check it out.
All right. Well,
if you can find it.
Yeah. I get to wrap this up. I had mentioned this game before when we were doing games of late, and this is Horrified, designed by Prospero Hall, published by Ravensburger in 2019. It plays 1 to 5 players. Let's get into the nuts and bolts of this game. So, as the box says, a city screams in terror, a cooperative game against the world's most famous monsters. The village is under attack. Dracula, the mummy, Frankenstein's monster, his bride, and more are on the rampage, and your team of heroes must defeat them. Each monster offers an entirely unique challenge, and players can adjust the difficulty by playing against a new group of adversaries every game. Overcome them all before the horror overwhelms you. So, in Horrified, as it was beautifully pointed out in the overview, you basically are trying to defeat the monsters, the famous Universal Picture monsters of the old black and white genre from way back. You're trying to get rid of them. So there's several, like every good co-op game, there's different difficulty levels. So you either start off with 2, the normal is you have 3 monsters, or the challenge level is you have 4 monsters. And of course, I am not one to shy away from too much. I immediately went after the 4 monster and got handed it to me, but we'll get back to that. So basically, it's your typical cooperative game where you have a certain amount, depending on the character that you select, you have a certain amount of action points. So on your action points, you are able to do, so on your turn, you are able to do, you either move, because there's this map of the village, and I'll get, when I talk about the components, I'll get more into what I really think about the board itself. But you move, you guide one of the villagers, because that's, as I'll get into that part, villagers come out as part of the mechanism of this game. You pick up items, like every good co-op. There's resources that make the machine work. You can share, if you're multiplayer, you can share these items. These items contribute to advancing the tasks or advancing how you defeat the monsters. And I'll quickly explain that when I get into a little bit more detail on the monsters. You can defeat the monster itself, or you can take a special action depending on your character itself. Some characters have special actions where the thematic nature of their character will allow them to appear certain areas, or allow them to basically the rule breakers. Like every good cooperative game, each character is a little different because of the way that they can break the rules of the game. So that being said, those are your actions on the hero phase. As in, and again, this game beautifully beautifully follows, I would say, the social contract established already in cooperative games, that there's a recipe. You start your turn. You after you do your turn, you do the monster's turn, then you draw an events card, then you create that finishing dynamic of the board change on your turn, then you hand it off to the next player who goes through that recipe list. So on the monster phase, you basically draw a monster card, and it's the monster cards that are, interestingly, I would say, probably the transmission that makes this engine work the best, because on the top of the monster card, you'll have a number of how many items that you populate the board with. And it's these items that you use to defeat the monsters and take care of all the puzzles. So these are the integral resources in the game. And there's 3 different colors. There's red, there's blue, and there's yellow. And thematically, they follow their own kind of thematic nature in regards to stuff that you find in the barn will be barn tools. Certain barn tools, if it's a red weapon, will have, if it's an axe, then it will have a value on how efficient that weapon is. And the values of these items will range from 1 to, I believe the most powerful is 5. That comes into effect on the different ways that you can defeat these monsters, because sometimes you might just use red resources and you have to have a number above a certain limit to either affect or defeat the monster. So that's how these resources that populate the board. So the next thing on the monster card is you either have a special action of a particular monster, or you have what is called the villagers. And the villagers are the cool part, because they're one of these mechanisms that help you and hurt you at the same time. The villagers appear on the monster card randomly, and what you have to do is find them at the location they appear at and help guide them back to their safe spot. If you successfully guide them back amongst your, with all the actions that you do, if you successfully guide them back to their home space, you get what's called a perk card. And these perk cards are, once again, these rule breakers that give you these bonuses that are the tipping point that allow you to, it's that one, if I had that one last chance. These cards are the tipping point of you successfully accomplishing a win in this game, or being defeated, as will so happen in this game. And then, of course, on the bottom of the card is the monster movement and the attack movement. So the monster card itself is, like I said, the transmission that drives the game. It will be that board changing scenario that will create the tactical choices for the next player. I hope I got into that whole system pretty straightforward. I can get into the fighting later on when I'm talking about my conclusions about the game, or my opinions about the game. But so far, that's how the game operates. Now, how you win the game is basically you kill the monsters. And as in every good co-op game, there's one way to win, and there's a whole bunch of ways you can lose the game. You can lose the game if your terror track, right, hits a certain max number. Now, with the visitors, or the villagers, I mean, I didn't mention the negative thing. The positive thing, if you get them back to their home space, you get a perk card. The negative thing is if a monster gets to them and kills them, it ups your terror track, right? And like
that reminds me a lot of Flashpoint.
I have not played that, but I've heard that in a lot of other reviewers, how the co-op mechanism or the engine works in this event structure. Yeah. The other one is that you're out of time. The monster deck runs out, right? So there's so many different ways to lose, one way to win, which is your typical script for a co-op game. Now, let's go back to our beautiful rundown script. That's how you win, not necessarily how you win, that's how you lose. If you win, is because you successfully and tactfully solve this puzzle as it organically develops. Now, opinions. From outside in, as we always say, the box art, first impressions. The Prospero Hall Ravensburger series of these games, of these IP specific games that are coming out, are coming in a standard, I think it's like a 10 by 10 by 2-inch box, a little smaller than your typical Ticket to Ride box, but that same scale, right? Just kind of a medium version, right? The box art is so classic Universal Monsters. It gives me flashbacks of when I was a kid. Creature from the Black Lagoon, the werewolf, the Invisible Man, the Mummy, Dracula, the Frankenstein couple, Mr. and Mrs. And now going into, as I say, the components. This is what I really like about this game, and I can't wait to compare it to the other games in this series. But the cardboard reminds me of the like Orleans. That has a nice thick cardboard. They did not cheap out and get flimsy cardboard. They didn't get the most expensive, right? Because the price point of this game is a nice sweet spot, but they got the cards are great. The cardboard thickness they use is awesome. The board is fantastic. The players that you use are all standees. The villagers are standees, but the monsters are the minis, and I can't wait to paint them. So, yeah. Now, each monster comes with a very unique monster board that has a very unique way to defeat this monster. And I think the best thing I loved so far about, and again, kind of getting into conclusions, but was learning how each of these different monsters operated on its own, and watching in the game how, not purposefully, but how there was a synchronicity of how they beat the snot out of you, right? I mean, just how that mechanism worked with certain monsters work so well together, and other monsters kind of clash, right? So the components are fantastic for the price point of this game. The rule book is what you'd expect of a game that is designed for a family market kind of game. It reads well. It's got great, as far as the graphic arts go, the background, foreground, you're able to read the words properly. There's not too much confusion, right? There's no visual confusion as far as my teacher brain goes, right? They used color in the right way, bold color when you wanted to be attracted to certain parts in the game for the examples and so on and so forth. So I love the rulebook. The rulebook's great. The game system and style, I believe I've already talked about that as I said, that social contract we have with cooperative games, that it's basically each player's recipe, right? Here's your actions. Here's how many actions you have. Here's what you can do. Now it's the game's. Now it's the Nemesis's turn, and then now we have to introduce a chaotic element to the game state, and then it's the next player's turn, right? Worked great, awesome. The unique mechanism of this game, as far as the game itself and the system, there's nothing unique about it except for the fact that the IP is the uniqueness that caught me and drew me to this game because of my nostalgia for this IP, right? I grew up with the Universal Mod. Now, again, I might be showing my age, but there's an homage in the Villagers. There's a duo that looks very much like Abbott and Costello.
Nice.
Right? So for those who know what I'm talking about, is right? That whole shtick. I mean, right away, it drew me, right? That's the uniqueness I have of this and it's not a mechanism unless you want to call the theme a mechanism, and sometimes it is. Does this all connect? Yeah, I had a blast, right? I mean, it was you were trying to do the old black and white films, Abbott and Costello chasing the monsters out of town, trying to solve this unique problem that changes every turn. Time for some conclusions. You guys ready for some conclusions?
Sure.
I'm hoping you got a whole bunch of questions to ask me. My conclusions, I love this game. The graphic arts, and this is what I want to talk about, the board game, like the game board itself. It is probably, from being a dad, right, and trying to teach my family new games, the game board itself has this kind of shadowy dark village feel, as like a dark blue background and light blue where the moon lights up the certain waterways for the creature from the Black Lagoon. But the map itself is illuminated and easily separated from the background, because it's got this warm, on a blue background, it's got this warm yellow kind of vintage turn of the century street light illumination to it, which I think is probably the most considerate thing for this board game. I mean, there's no shock value visually when I see this game, and that's one thing I really like about this game. As far as all of the co-op stuff that I have, I think I appreciate this game the most because it's fast to set up. It's easily I don't have to go into the rule book. I mean, once you play it a couple times, it's in your head. It's locked in. It's one of these easy games to get into, right? I mean, man, doing a solo play on this maybe takes me 5 minutes to get this thing going, right? So,
well, plus it has a lot of DNA of other games, so that helps you kind of remember stuff too, I would imagine.
And that's what I mean. It's that whole, I think this team of Prospero Hall, I've come to understand that it's a team of designers that are very kind of let's work under the umbrella of like a band, right? I mean, we're all unique musicians, and let's function under the band name. So their band name is Prospero Hall, and I think they paid proper respect to that social contract of what a co-op game, how a co-op game behaves, and kudos to them, because this just makes me want to buy more of their stuff, right? Before I get into my shelf position, I want to hear some feedback, gentlemen.
What intrigued me was those perk cards. So would you say that that's one of the more interesting parts of the game, is getting those perk cards?
The perk cards are exactly, I mean, I perked up when I went, oh yeah, that's exactly what these things do in the game. Is when you get a perk card, you play it face up so everybody can see it, right? So they can strategically work the group's perks. Now, one, I mean, they're pretty straightforward. One's called Hurry. Move each hero up to 2 spaces. These are the cards that all of a sudden it's like, I found $20 in my pocket, right? It's just this, yay, awesome. I forgot about that. Sweet, right? Move a monster 4 spaces. Yay, we can save right? It's just one of those moments of joy until then it's the monster's turn and you go, oh no, we're back stuck into a corner again, right? But it's exactly what it says. It's a perk. It's I'm gonna use that metaphor again. It's finding $20 in a coat pocket, right? That's yeah. Ryan, so I know you love your pandemic. I know you do.
Well, and I was about to say too that does. So pandemic already. We made these jokes already in the previous episode when you mentioned to play this, that this is just like another re-theme of we quote unquote call it the pandemic mechanism, because the pandemic kind of really set the standard for these cooperative type of games and everything. But this sounds like it would be even more of a maybe of a kind of like of a better entry point for some people, because maybe that whole pandemic, the where we are right now in our world of fighting viruses and everything, maybe that might not be a great spot for some people, whereas
it's a worn out theme right now.
Whereas fighting horror monsters might be a little a more fun twist.
Yeah, you say that until we get the vampire invasion of 2021.
Yeah, the werewolf sightings have started again. No, that's just my Uncle Rudy.
No, we're gonna get pandemic 2020 coming out here.
Oh, you know it's gonna happen.
But yeah, no, I think what was discussed before is that we've all gained an understanding of how a co-op game functions. And then I think this does now again, it differs from pandemic because there's no like pandemic, there's no tipping point of all of a sudden you start to grow in adjoining cities. There's none of that in this manner. It's just instead of your viral blobs moving around, it's the monsters that are physically, Frankenstein. And this is the best part. I love it. They're slow, but this tension slowly builds up because, I mean, they move 2 spaces at a time, or you could move 4, but man, oh man, they just start converging on you, and that noose starts to tighten up a lot, right? I mean, it creates the appropriate tension that is expected, I think.
Nice.
Right on.
So for me, I would say shelf position comfortably sits on my middle shelf, right? It's not something that I'm going to, it's not, now again, not to say that because it's not deep and crunchy and a heavy euro that it doesn't deserve to be on the top shelf. It might just sneak its way onto the top shelf just because of, number of plays, right? So
Sweet.
Yeah, it's sitting comfortably on the middle shelf with the potential Dracula bat transformation to bring it up to the top shelf. Well, nice. You finished that with a nice metaphor.
So which is your favorite of the old monster movies?
My favorite, well, man, I mean, I hit it with the Abbott and Costello stuff, right? They pretty much got to play around with all those IPs, but if we're going to go into the whole traditional thing, I think, now again, I was going to say Dr. Jekyll, Mr. Hyde, but it's not even a monster on this one. I'm a big fan of the whole Frankenstein, right? Yeah. The original Mary Shelley, because that was just an allegory for so many things, right? But again, I don't want to get too deep.
I'm just following Ian, trying to figure out which one of those monster movies is going to be the highest on his top 100 list.
You're a huge movie fan. As far as the IP goes, does that draw you a little bit?
It's interesting. Yeah. You gotta love those classic monster movies. Creature from the Black Lagoon is great. It's probably my favorite out of them. Frankenstein's probably objectively the best, but
he's got the most screen time. Well, let's take that as a nice segue to closing up this episode. Any last things on the way out, gentlemen?
I want a game with actual people.
I think we're close.
We're
close.
We're getting so more closer.
We just got, at least for me, I just have to see the news feed that in the city there were at least if we can go a week without a new case,
right? Yeah.
Then I'm okay. Then I'll feel okay. Other than that, I'm going to behave like Monk and just be like, go through like a squeegee wash of antibacterial soap. All right, so thank you for making your way to the end of the episode. I commend you. You should have a achievement award. Ryan, what's that sound?
Achievement unlocked. Ting.
Bling. End of episode achieved. Either feel shameful or feel glad.
They are 2 brain cells now wiser.
Yeah, exactly. I have been your host, Norm.
I've been Ryan.
I'm Ian.
And we'll catch you later. We are Bridge City Board Gamers. You can find us on Twitter at BC Board Gamers, on YouTube, and on Facebook at Bridge City Board Gamers Community, and of course on BGG Guild number 3039.